Begin the current Daf, Mesech Gitin Daf Chav. Begin on the top of the Amid, where the Gemara continues the halacha. The next Mishnah contained the theme of these words actually have been one of the most prominent since the beginning of the Masechta. The first two prakim were called maybe get, and our Mishnah continues on this theme regarding bringing a get, but specifically regarding if one loses it and one doesn't know the identity of it, if that's going to be necessarily kosher or not. Turn to today's daf. Something discussed in today's daf are maybe get. So someone's bringing a get, a shliach, but and he loses it. So the Mishnah is going to differentiate if matzah la'alter, if he finds it right away, then it's going to be kosher. But if it wasn't right away, it's going to be puzzle. Now the Gemara primarily in today's daf is going to be discussing the contradicting Mishnah that implies ha'amar tenu, our Mishnah. Seems to there's a Mishnah that indicates, similarly, a Mishnah Bab Metzia, that you don't return it, but it's inferred that if he says to give it, you would give it filas ma'meruba, even for a long period of time, which seems to contradict the halach of our Mishnah. So the Gemara is going to make an important distinction between kan b'makom shasheras mitzuyos. Here we're talking about a place where caravans are common, which then l'zman meruba is where we're going to say, yeah, it's going to be possible because people pass by here all the time. It's possible someone with the same names dropped a get. The other Mishnah is talking about a place where it's not common caravan. So then, even for a long period of time, we don't have to suspect that it was someone else, and then we're going to say that it's kosher. Now, there's another stipulation that we'll see that's possibly a requirement, is it's not only the fact that there has to be caravans passing by to think, hey, maybe someone else dropped it, but why should we think someone has the same exact name as the husband and the wife? We have to have this knowledge to know that there are two people with the same name, and then we would go ahead and suspect l'zman meruba that, hey, maybe it dropped from someone else. We can't just give it back to this woman. Which that also relates to the discussion at the end of the daf of Siman and Midiraisi the Rabbanan, Shigmar B'Mitzi discusses, is a sign. Could he identify? Would that be considered biblical for the halachas of Gitin, or is that only a rabbinic halacha for the halachas of Mammon? So we begin the current daf Chav. We begin at the top of the Amid. We begin with the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, maybe get. So someone's bringing a get, and the guy's looking, he loses it, he doesn't know where it is. But then, matzah la'alter. If he finds it right away, okay, kosher, it's going to be kosher, didn't lose its validity. But if not, puzzle is going to be puzzle. Why? It's like Rashi explains, maybe he fell from someone else, and it's not his. And Taish discusses at great length in many of these different tastes, meaning the problem is it's not stam. You can't use it if it has the same one. It has to be obviously lishma. It has to be written for this woman. If it's not the one that you lost, even though it has all the same information, it won't be valid. So maybe it fell from someone else. Maybe it's not yours. So therefore, if you didn't find it right away, it's going to be possible. Now the Mishnah continues, however, it says matzah bechafisa. Let's say he finds it's in some type of a flask made out of leather. Oivet luskama. It's a vessel, and basically you have a simon. The Gemara will explain exactly what these items are. But you have a simon. You know this is yours. This is your flask that you always have. Then in my kirai, if you recognize it, so Rashi actually says that this is independent teaching. It's actually not if you find your flask and if you recognize it. It's saying what's called either or. If you find it in your flask, that's one thing. And you have a simon that it's yours, or you recognize it even no matter where you find it. So you just recognize, I know this is the get I've been holding for 3 months, traveling over this boat, bringing it from the husband overseas. Either one of these kasha would make it valid, because now you know that it's the one that you lost, even though it is l'zman meruba, even though it's been a long time since you lost it, either way will be valid. Okay, but now the Gemara asks a contradiction on the halacha of our Mishnah, from a Mishnah Bab Metzia. Mishnah on Daf Yomi and Bab Metzia says the following halacha. What happens if you're walking along your merry way and matzah Gitin Nashim? You find what looks like interesting. What's this document on the floor? It's a get. It's a divorce document. Or v'shachur avadim, you find an emancipation of slaves. Or daitiki. What's daitiki? Daitiki is the commands of a dying person. What's called the shchimara, which is the word daitiki is dot tehei lemekim v'liyos, meaning to say that this is what the person should have rights to. Or let's say you found matanis, which is the gift from a healthy person. Or v'shevarin, or receipts. Basically, you walk along, you find one of these documents on the floor. What do you do with these documents now? Right? You want to do Hashavas Aveda. Says the Mishnah Bab Metzia, Rizzo lo yachzeh. You don't return it not to the husband, not to the woman, for the case of the Getisha, so to the shiur, you don't give it back to the master, not to the slave. All these cases, you don't return it. Why not? Shani Ayman, because I say as follows. Maybe Kesuvin Hayu, maybe these documents were written, V'nimluch aleihen shalei litten. And the guy changed his mind, didn't give it. How are you supposed to give it to the woman? You can't give it to her because you don't know if it was given or it's not. Now, but the main question the Gemara wants is like this. From the fact that the Mishnah Bab Metzia is saying the reason why you don't give it is because Shani Oime, because I can say maybe he never gave it. Whoa, wait a second. The inferences, and let's discuss a lot of these inferences, Ha'amar. But if let's say the husband would say, Tunu, give it to her. Because, yeah, Chabis Geschriben, I wrote it, I gave it to her. Then Neusnid, you would give it. Could have been lost for months. I was looking for this. And we're not concerned that maybe it's not this one. That contradicts the halach of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said the guy was bringing it and he lost it. He can't find it. Said, okay, if it's been a long time, that's it. You can't give it. Well, mate, I found it. Well, maybe it was someone else with the same names. And yet here you're telling me when the guy's walking along his way and he finds it, could have been months. He gives it to the woman. You only don't give it because I could say maybe he never gave it. But if he says, yeah, I gave it, I admit to that, then you would give it. Why? Why give it to be chayshish? Then maybe it's somewhat the same name. So Rabbi says, loy kasha. Says it's not difficult. Why not? Kan, our Mishnah is talking about the mokum shashares mitzuyas. It's going to be possible because there's caravans, there's people who travel over this area. So maybe it fell from those who continuously pass by this area. Makes sense. A lot of people, it's a busy thoroughfare. Makes sense. It could have dropped from someone else with the same names. Khan, the Mishnah Bab Metzia that says it's going to be kasha, even though it's been months, has been mokum she'ena she'eres mitzuyas. Caravans don't pass by. But what's the odds? There's no one comes over here. It found it here in some shed, whatever. There's no reason for us to believe that this was from someone else. That's the Gemara's resolution of the contradiction. But now, as Rashi explains, this next part of the Gemara is not Rabbah saying it, it's the Gemara who is explaining that this that Rabbah had said, that our Mishnah is talking about, Mogam Shasheres Mitzuyais, is a qualification in that teaching, which is, even in a place where caravans are common, which Rabbah had explained the halacha of our Mishnah is telling us, if you didn't find it right away, we have to suspect that it fell from someone else and it's going to be puzzle. But wait a second, there's a stipulation, there's another condition. That's only when we have knowledge that there are two people with the same name and the same women that have been established in the same city. But if it was not hochzik, we're not going to come up and concoct and say that maybe there is such a person with the same name, we just don't know such a person, or maybe there's another city that has the same name as this city, and that city there's a person with the same man and the same name of the woman like this that's going to claim it. We don't make that up. And therefore, it's only going to be a problem of what we're saying in our Mishnah, that it's Lazman Meruba, only if in addition we know that there is another person with the same name and that the woman with the same name. Because if not, we're not going to be chayshish that maybe there is such a person that we don't know. Right, that's what was asked the other time, if it would be specific or not. Yeah, that's the classic question about that, if it was going to be or not. But it seems like that not necessarily would it be. Yeah, meaning Lizman Meruba, that's going to be possible specifically that it's Makam Sheres Mitzuyas, and says the Gemara, Shochzuku Shnei ben Shimon. Because if it's missing one of them, then it's not going to be a problem. We're not going to, if it's been a very short time, it's okay, we're not suspecting. And if there's no Sheres Mitzuyas, there's no reason for us to suspect the from anyone else. And there's no Shnei ben Shimon, so even if people pass by, we don't know of any other people with the same name, so there's no reason for us to suspect that's someone else. And that the Gemara proves that the Eloi Temahachi, if you don't say that, meaning, and that's why Rashi was saying, why is Rashi saying that this is the Gemara, not Rabbah? Because You see, the Gemara itself is saying, if you don't say that Rabbah didn't invalidate, only when you have these two things, one, that shiur is mitzuyos, and two, that's huchzuku shnei ben Shimon. If you're not going to say that he needed both to say it's going to be possible, not halacha b'mishnah, then you would have kasha de Rabbah. You would have a Rabbah contradiction. Why? Because we'll bring another story that from that story you'll see it has to be what we're saying. Now, who gita tishtakech beidina de Rav Huna? There was a certain get that was found in the courthouse of Rav Huna, which it was brought. Why was a get there in the courthouse? It's brought over there to be verified by the court, which they write what's called a henpick. A henpick is the certification of the courts verifying the authenticity of this document. Now, it fell from this guy, and he's saying that, give it back to me. Now, it was not established that there was two Yosef ben Shimons in that city. So, Vavakosebe, on the document it said like this: Bishviri, the name of the place, Masa is a town, the Al Rochas, Nara, by the river in the Rochas. And Ba'am Rav Huna said like this. He said, Chayshishin l'shnei shviri. We're concerned that maybe there's two places called shviri, and maybe it didn't fall from this guy. And therefore, you can't go ahead. Taisa explains why was he saying maybe it's another shviri, is because why didn't he say maybe it's another Yosef ben Shimon? Because no, they knew that there was only one person with the same name. So it says, yeah, but maybe there's two shviris. So I don't know if it fell from this guy. There's another town with the same name that there's a different Yosef ben Shimon over there. So that's what Rav Huna said initially. Rav Chizla said to Rabba, Puk ba'ayin ba. Go out, check into this. Because the L'urda, when it comes evening time, Bayila Minach Rav Huna, who the Shaila happened with, he's going to ask you regarding the Shaila. So check into this, be prepared. So Nafik, he went out dark, he was medactic, he analyzed, and he found an answer to the question. What was the answer? Not because they learned Mishnah Bab Metzid of Chof Medalf. Mishnah says, Kol Maisa Bezdin. What is a Maisa Bezdin? If someone finds a document that was verified by the courts, that's a Maisa Bezdin. It was an act of the court, which is, we don't have to be concerned that maybe it was written and the person changed their mind that they never gave it. Why? How do we know that the person never, that he for sure gave it? Because a person doesn't verify a document, but if he's the lender, meaning after the borrower gave the lender the document to say that I borrowed $1,000 and I owe you $1,000, he was concerned that maybe the witnesses will die. So therefore, he wants to go to the court to have it verified. I don't have to go and now check when 2 years later he's going to, I don't know, it's not true, it never happened, or that he's going to have to authenticate it. He's going to be stuck without the witnesses because they would die. He goes right away, but it only happens once it's given over. So once it's a Maisa Bezin, we know that it's already given over. So says the Mishnah, if it's a Maisa Bezin, Harezi Yachzer. Then unlike the previous Mishnah Daf Yomi that we quoted before that says, oh, we don't return these things because we don't know if it was given, maybe change his mind. No, these things, we're not concerned that maybe it's not his, and we're going to go ahead and give it back to him. Now, that seems to be not like what Rav Huna had said. Rav Huna had said that you're not going to give it back to the person. But one thing is, says the Gemara like this. So this was Rabbah who found this Mishnah on Daf Chafim Bab Metzia, and he was telling you that when you find the Maisa Bezdin in court, meaning in the Bezdin, you are going to go ahead and return it to the person. Not like what Rav Huna was saying that, oh, no, we're not going to return it. It says the Gemara of Beidina de Rav Huna, the court of Rav Huna, everyone needed to go to Rav Huna for court cases, for halachic rulings, and they're coming there. The Kamokim Shasheres Mitzuyas Dami. His courthouse is like a place where the caravans are common, and Mekim to the Rebbe, we're coming for Hadrucha, we're coming for Dini Torah, and the Kapashit and Rabbah was resolving the halacha that Yachzer, that you should give it back. Oh, so says the Gemara, Alma, you see as follows. Why? How are you giving it back? It's a Makom Shasheres Mitzuyas. Didn't you say in the halacha of our Mishnah that when someone loses something, a get, a star, you're not going to give it back if it's Makom Shasheres Mitzuyos? So how is Rabbah passing himself that in the Bezdin of Rav Huna, you're going to give it back. Yeah, you don't have the problem that the Mishnah of Yitchesim B'Metzia said of Shema Nimlach. Maybe you changed his mind, never gave it. No, you know he gave it because it's a Ma'aseh Bezdin. Yeah, but what he means, Makam Sheres Mitzuyis, maybe it fell from someone else. You see, no. If we would know that there's another guy with the same name in the same city, then yes. Then it would be possible like the way we had in our Mishnah. But if it was not established two Yesim and Shimon, then loy. Because as Rashi explains, I was with Rav Huna. Rav Huna said maybe it's another Shviri. No, two Shviris we're not concerned for. But if you know the fact that there is another place like this, if you know that there is another Yesim and Shimon, and the Sheis Mitzuyas, don't be chayshid. But if we don't know, then we're not chayshid with that. We're not chayshid with another Shviri. We're not chayshid with another Yesim and Shimon. And that's how we just proved the Gemara's qualification of Rabbi's teaching. Rabbi had only said the difference is if it's Miyakum Shadon or not. The Gemara says, I need you to know that Rabbi's teaching had another qualification. I'll prove to you from a different psak of Rabbi. Rabbi himself paskin by the quarters of Rav Huna that you're going to give it back to the guy. Because you know that it was definitely authenticated already. But the question is, it's Makam Sheres Mitzuyas. How could he have said that you give it back? Maybe it fell from someone else. No, it must be because there was not established that there was another guy with the same name. It was not established that there was another Shviri. And therefore, that's why he said to give it back. Now the Gemara brings a story. Ovid Rabba Uvda. Rabba actually went and did a psak. There was a story that happened. Bahu Gitin, there was a certain get, the shtakech be kissed in the Pumbedisa. It was found in the room of the flax in Pumbedisa, and he did it kishmaite. He did it like his own teaching, meaning to say, he said that you need both. And here there's only one of them, meaning there's only one of the flaws, and therefore he's going to give it back to the one who's claiming it. Now, there was two different versions of that story. Ikadad Amri, now those who said that, what does it mean, Beit Kisna, the place of the flags? It means Beduchta Heicha de Toru Kisna. It was in the place where they would soak the flags and in the water over there. Now, Va'avagav de Huchsiku. So although it was established that there was two Yosef and Shimons in that same city with the same name, but Deloy Shrichen Shayarta. And the place where they soak the flags, the people don't, the masses don't go over there. It's a secluded area. So even though it's Huchsukush Yosef and Shimon, but it wasn't Shayaris Mitzuyas. So therefore he says, okay, we don't have to suspect it fell from someone else, and therefore give it back. But there's a story regarding the other variable. Some say it means Beduchta de Mezavni Kisna, that place of the flax. They didn't mean the place where they soak the flax, it means where they sell the flax, which is in the marketplace. Oh, but it was not known that there's another person with the same name. So even though even though there are caravans, he said it's okay also, because it didn't have the other variable of Huchsushneas Mitzvah. So it has to have both to say we're not going to return it to you, for us to really suspect that it fell from someone else. And this story had either one or the other variable missing, and therefore they give it back to the one who's claiming that get. Now, this was all one version of the question according to Rabbah. Now, Reb Zera is going to ask the same question, but he's going to ask from a different source. Reb Zera Domi Masnitin, he posed a contradiction of our Mishnah, a Braisa, on the Braisa, and the Mishani and the answers. What's the contradiction? Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah that says it may be get. If someone brings a get, and he loses it, if he finds it right away, it's going to be kosher. Bimlav pasal, if not, it's going to be pasal. This was the halacha of our Mishnah of our Daf that we started off with. Okay. But a minute. Now he posed a contradiction from the following brisa. The brisa says, "Motza get isha b'shuk." If you find a woman's get in the street, so what do you do with it? So the Mishnah says, "Bizmad shabal moida." When the husband admits, he says that he says to give it to her because it's hers, it fell from her. So yachzal isha, so you give it back to the woman. Ein abal moida. The husband does not admit. So then, lo yachzal lo lazeh lo lazeh. You don't give it back to either one. So interesting. Why wouldn't you give it back to either one? So Rashi explains, you don't give it back to the husband because maybe he already gave her the get, and it fell from her. Because you would think, why don't you give it back to her? What would you lose by giving it to him? Like, okay, you can't give it to her because maybe she was never divorced. But why? What do you lose by giving it to him? So Rashi says very interesting. It says maybe he really gave her the get, and it fell from her. Now, when he gets the get, what he's going to do is he's going to find the Eidei Mesira who could testify that she was divorced, because it really happened, they had really given it to her. Now, the problem becomes like this. When she's going to come claim her kasuba, he's going to say, I paid you already. Because he's going to say, I'll prove to you that I paid you. Because you know how you collected your kasuba? Sometimes the Mishnah teaches in ksubas that if a woman doesn't have a ksuba, if she produces her get, the courts will collect the ksuba with the get, because they'll take the get away from her and say, okay, now you won't be able to use it ever again, but we're using it, and they'll give her some type of other verification that she's divorced, and you obligated me to pay by producing your get, and you gave me the get that you shouldn't be able to collect again. So that's a very big problem, because if we're going to give him the get, she will lose out her ksuba. So we can't give him the get either. She'll have to find. She's the one that lost it. No, she'll be able to find some other way, maybe of verifying that her ksuba was never paid up. But the moment he gets the get, he'll be able to prove that you already collected your ksuba, because look, what am I doing with the get? So we can't give it to him. At the same time, we can't give it to the woman, because she might get married with it, and maybe he never gave it to her, and she was never divorced. So you can't give it to either one of them. Fine. But the main thing we really want from this brisa is the Gemara says, but as a Gitin Daf and Beis, you're telling me, Bismancha bal moed. Fine. But one thing is that if the husband admits and he says, yeah, it's hers, that Yavz Ish, you're going to give it back to the woman, well, that sounds like a Rafael Maruba. No matter how long of a time period passed, you're going to give it back to her. Well, how are you giving it back to her? You said in our Mishnah that when it's lost from the person in Lizman Maruba, you don't give it back. So how are you giving it back in the brisa? Mashani Reb Zera gives the same answer that. What? Who in our mission? Where? The Brisa is saying if the husband is moida, so then he says, yeah, chab gegeben, the chab geget. But how could you give it the question? How could Yibel Izman Meruba? Even if he gave it to her, maybe this fell from a different person that had the same name. Like in our Mishnah, where the shleich was bringing it, and we say, yeah, Taki, you were also bringing a get with the same name, but we don't know it fell from you. It might have fallen from someone else with the same name. It's been a long time. We don't know. Maybe someone else with the same name had it. So I don't care if you admit that you gave it. That doesn't help us. This might be a different get with the same name. That's what our Mishnah seems to say.
Yes, this is my wife's gift. And why shouldn't you return it? Even if it's non-verbal, what could she do with the gift? If she wants to get married again,
Yeah, so Taisus. Right, so Taisus discusses the question that you're asking is like, who cares if he anyways divorced her and he's admitting? So why can't you just give her this get?
The alternative is to write a new get.
Right.
Say, okay, I'll write you a new get. We don't even care if it's not
right.
her get.
So Taisus asked this question. He says, this Taisus the top. Right. The top Taisus on Chav Zayin Beis says this question. He says, I don't understand. The husband saying I divorce. If the Gemara brings and later on the Samach Dal, if a husband says I divorced my wife, he's believed. He admits over here that he divorced her. So it's a nishza get, but give it to her that she could use it as a raya to be able to get remarried. So what's the question? Says Taisus, no, that halacha that you believe a husband that he says that I divorced my wife is only mikanu lahaba from here on, migui that he could say that okay, you don't believe me, I could do it right now. So what's the difference? So the halacha is that then the peiros, which is her utility of her nechse melug, would only be from here on, but not lemafreya. When he says, I divorced her from the time of the get, the problem you're going to run into in this case is that if you're going to give it back to the woman, she's going to collect from the dates that were prior. Now she has no rights to, because even if we believe the husband to say I divorced her, it's only from here and on. So if we're going to give it this get, and it might not be her get, she's going to collect what a Vashtaiten get from all the lukhim that took from the husband and all that time period she's going to be collecting.
What does he say? He admits, yes, it's a good get. I divorced you a year ago. So
no, but we don't.
He's admitting. So if he ate the peres, but he's chayiv the peres because he admits.
Right, but the problem is only a collection. We don't care what he says. They could be doing a kanunya. They could be doing a say this get is we trust the get because it's the get. We don't know if this is the get. So you're saying, who cares if the get? You have the other name. He's admitting, she's admitting. So, it's not true because this get is a flaw. It's a flawed get because she's going to collect from the date that says on this get. We don't know if this is that get. She's going to collect from those times.
It's for his disadvantage.
No, it's not his disadvantage. It's the lachim. The lachim. He had fakayf. Yeah, and then they're going to be. She's going to be collecting from them. So that's a good question. That's Tais's question. Which what?
Person that found the get, how comes
No, get regular get. Regular get, you could give it to Aidim and you give it to the woman. That's it. What?
You don't have to verify the get. Call the item and say, no, yeah, we signed this, but it's signed for someone else.
Oh, if you bring them, we don't know. I'm saying if two people recognize these two witnesses' signatures, these are real witnesses. They might have been on different Yosef and Shimon. No, meaning to say the Gemara is going to discuss something similar to what it sounds like you want to say, but in general, when you have two witnesses signed, we don't. Yeah, other people will verify their signature, but it could be on that it was get. You know what I'm saying? So it's not going to help us know that this is from these people. So therefore, even if the husband's admitting, but that's not going to help us because it might be for someone else. So the Gemara says, oh, that's not a contradiction because our Mishnah is talking about b'makom sheyesh mitzuyis. That like Rabbah said, basically the same answer. That as many people pass by, we have to be concerned. The Bryce is talking about where caravans don't generally pass by, and therefore that's what we said that you're going to give it back to the woman in that case. Now, regarding the same answer that Rab Zera is given like Rabbah, however, there's two versions to the opinion of Rab Zera if he's agreeing with Rabbah or not. Because as you recall, for Rabbah we said there's another qualification, and we proved it because of another story with Rabbah. That in the Bezner of Huna, we had to say that it's only with Huchsa Kushneis and Shimon. So there was two different versions if Reb Zera agreed to that or not. That those that want to say that this Reb Zera answered that in our Mishnah that it's going to be possible because there's caravans that pass by is only Bahusha Hustaku. Only if it's been established that there's another person with the same name. That's who Dulayhada, that you're not going to give it back. But that's exactly right. But it says you need to have both because even if people pass by, in town we know there's only Ein Yosef and Shimon, we're going to start thinking maybe it's another guy we never heard of. He's never been registered. He's someone. But those that say no. That Reb Zera held that the halacha about Mishnah that held that you cannot give it back is even when we don't know if there's another person with the same name. And he disagrees with Rabbi. Fine, either one or the other, we don't know. But the point is, the Gemara says the following question: we understand Rabbi that he had answered his answer from a contradiction of two Mishnayos. One's our Mishnah Masechtas Gitin on Daf Chav Zayin, nobody that we're discussing, and one's a Mishnah B'Metzik Daf Yud Ches. We understand why Lo'amak Reb Zera, he didn't say like Reb Zera, who asked from a Brisa, because Masnitna, Lima Lelekshriya. Obviously, it's a bigger question to pose a contradiction from two Mishnayos, because a Mishnah is more primary than the Brisa. And Reb Zera, that he posed the contradiction of the halacha of our Mishnah from a Brisa, my time Lo'amak, why didn't he say his answer on two Mishnayos, Karabba, like Rabbah? So Malach Rabbi Zera would tell you, nah, our Mishnah, that wasn't a difficulty. Ich hab nicht gefragt, das Stire von unserer Mishnah. Mi Katani, do you think above Metzi it says that if im Amar Tenu Neusnen? Oh, but if he says, what was the case of Bab Metzia? The case of Bab Metzia was a guy's walking along his merry way, and he finds some document on the floor. And we said, no, can't give it to the woman. Why not? To get this woman's name. No, because maybe the husband, I could say that maybe the husband changed his mind and he never gave it. So that's why we don't give it. So the diuk the Gemara was making, Rabba's question was, sounds like because maybe he changed his mind. But if he would say that nachabes gegeben, then you would give it. But says Reb Zera, does it say im amar tenu neisnen? That if he would say give it, you would give it a full zman even for a long period of time? No. Dilma im amar tenu neisnen. Yeah, maybe that if he would say give it, you would give it. Kedekaim alon le alter. That's like we were saying, that would only be if it was immediate. In other words, It's a little bit of a cheshbon, but Rashi explains it. Says, most definitely, you have to say, the diuk of the Mishnah and Baba Metzia was that if he's going to say give it, you would give it. Why? Because the whole reason why you said that you're not giving it to is because ich ken sagen shani oime that maybe he never gave it. But if he's admitting, then you wouldn't have that concern, obviously. The only thing is, but where are you cutting off saying that this would even be that you would give it if he says give it, even if a long period of time passed? Maybe I could tell you that it's only like the validity, as we said here in Masechtas Gitin, only if you found it right away. Then it would be kosher. So that's not you can't prove to me that the Mishnah Bum. No. So that's what Rashi comes to explain explicitly. The Brisa most definitely is difficult, because what was the case of the Brisa? The Brisa said that you give it back to the woman. Now, if it was right away, and what's the case that we say give it back to the woman? If v'habal moida. Said, if he's moida, then you give it back to the woman. That's what Brisa said explicitly. If he's moida, then you give it. If it was right away that you found it, so obviously, what would be the concern? Of course, he's admitting it was right away, dava pashut. Unless, if it's coming to tell us that even though a long period of time had passed. Because if not, we wouldn't need it to teach us this halacha. Meaning, as Rashi explains one more piece, he says, it's understood in the Mishnah B'Metzia, which you didn't say explicitly, that if he says give it. Because if that would be, if it was explicitly said, there also you would have to say, what's the chiddush? Of course, if he says give it, and it was right away, then of course. No, it was the primary halacha itself that was telling us that you don't give it back. Because I say that maybe it was never given. But the deek is, obviously then if he says give it, you would give it. But maybe that would only be if it was immediate. You don't know if it would be for a long period of time. But if you're explicitly saying that if he says give it, what are you telling me? Of course, right away. And he's telling you that he gave it. Must be the chiddush is even though it's been a long period of time. That was Rabbi Zera's question in the Brisa. But in the Mishnah, it's not so difficult. Mishnah doesn't say explicitly that; it's inferring that. So the inference could be on lizman mu'it, but not necessarily lizman meruba. So therefore, that's why Rabbi Zera did not ask like Rabbi did from the Mishnah in B'Metzia. Rather, he asked in the Brisa, which seems to be stronger in the indication for this halacha of that you see that we're not choshed even lizman meruba, and therefore you have to answer like Rabbi did, which was yes, it depends if shishur's mitzuyos or not. Now, the Gemara continues that with the other solutions to the contradiction. Rabbi Yirmiyah, he says that no, the Mishnah is not difficult like Rabbah, the Brisa is not difficult like Reb Zera, because all these that we said that you're going to give it back for a long period of time would be talking about going to Ka'amri Edim, the witnesses who were signing it said, we never signed only a one get of a Yosef ben Shimon with the person with this name. And obviously the one that we signed was for this man who's claiming it. And therefore you're going to give it back, even Lazman Meruba. That's a pashta answer that he says that you're right. Generally you have to be concerned. We only signed the one. If you found one, this is the one. What? Even if there's two. We only signed on one. If this guy, what? But we only signed on one. Right, but it's right. But no, Taisa actually does say something similar to the question that like Taisa says, they know that they only signed on one, but they don't recognize who's that Yosef ben Shimon. Right, so Taisa gets into conversation that he wouldn't lie deliberately to say that it's his to ruin her, because just to gain that little bit of money to whatever. So it's a little bit of a cheshbon. But the simple understanding of the Gemara is that we only signed the one Yosef ben Shimon, and that's it. So when you tell me, we don't have to be concerned for another Yosef ben Shimon because it doesn't make a difference. We don't have to think that so the Gemara says remember that's so pashut, obviously. Why would I need a brisa to tell me this halacha or mishnah or whatever it is to tell me that you give it back? In the case when they said we only signed on one, then obviously this is the one. Says no, why would you say lechish dim kishma kishma ve'edim ke'edim? Maybe there's not only that there's someone else with the same names, maybe there's Eidim with the same names. Yeah, maybe those Eidim only signed on one Yosef ben Shimon, where it's got to be him. But maybe there's someone else with the same names that had people, Eidim with the same, and they're the same also. So when you're finding this, even though they say we only signed the one, there might have been other Eidim that also had the same names that also signed on the guys with the same name. No, it's saying if there's, well, yeah, well, either they're not around, and we're asking people who recognize it, and even if they do, maybe maybe people have the same, yeah. But be that as it may, the easier way of saying it is that they would have someone else that has the same recognition of their signatures, and you would say, oh, so he knows, and what's the concern? Or maybe they didn't even see it, and everyone's admitting. So what would be the problem? Let's say they weren't there. They said they put out we only signed. They're not around, but they're the long distance phone call, and they say that we only signed that one, so there wouldn't be any concern. He says, yeah, but even though your names are signed, we don't know. There might be someone else with the same names that also had. That's the chiddush that we're saying that no, that we're not concerned that there's going to be that much of a serendipity with having this like punk, 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 punk. Now the Gemara continues with the next teretz the Gemara brings is Rav Ashi says another approach to resolve the contradictions. He says Kigoyin de Ka'amar, with this shliach who lost it. Right. Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's like a long distance phone call that they're making. You know, saying we only signed. Well, don't bother make me come down to court. It's like I only signed. There was only one time I ever had. He says, yeah, but maybe someone else with the same name as you also went. Right. So that's one approach. Another approach, he says, the shlich who lost it says nekev yesh ba b'tzad ois plainis. Says there's a hole on the side of that letter on the get. Oh, the Abalei Simon Muvik. We has a distinct sign, so that we're, even Lazman Meruba, even if it's Sheikh is Mitzurais, we want to know it's a contradiction. Our Mishnah says Lazman Meruba is not good. We have to be concerned for someone else. The other Mishnah or Brisa says it is okay. It says, yeah, you're right. Usually we consider, but they was talking about we has a distinct sign. Sadaqah could have been 3 years, could have been 100,000 people pass by. He has a distinctive sign, therefore that's why you're going to give it back. But the Gemara qualifies as V'davka. Rav Ashi picked specifically B'tzadai's plainness, that the hole is on the side of that letter in the document. Davlei Simon Muvik, which is a distinct sign, there's no clearer proof and testimony than that. Because if he just says there's a hole in it, like that wouldn't be sufficient. Because Misafkele, Rav Ashi was endowed if Simonim, this that the Gemara tells us in Elam Mitzis and Bab Mitzich of Zayin Med Aleph, that you're going to return a lost object with Simonim, the Gemara over there asks, is that because it's biblical or rabbinic? So Rav Ashi was also endowed, if it's biblical or rabbinic, and therefore when it comes to the Isra of Eishes Ish, we're not going to rely on just generic Simonim, because maybe they're rabbinic. And maybe by monetary law, when you find Aveda, the Rabbanon had the ability to remove the ownership through the biblical principle of Hefka, Bez, and Hefka. And the reason why they instituted, the Gemara explains over there, but to permit a prohibition, the Rabbanon cannot be Iker, a biblical halacha, and therefore, so says Rashi, wait a second, why is the Gemara saying that he was in doubt? Why didn't you say just that he held that it's rabbinic? It's not true, because the Gemara asks it over there, and you cannot resolve from over here from the fact that he required a Simon Muvik that he obviously held it was rabbinic, because even if he would be misupik, he might say, out of doubt, it would be usher. So it's just being, you're trying to be as genuine as possible, and therefore saying misafkele, because we can't prove he held it rabbinic. He just didn't hold necessarily as biblical, and therefore it was specifically a Simon Muvik. Now the Gemara brings a story that Rabbi Babachana, that he was a shliach for a get. Irkis legit be midrasha. So he was in the base medrash. Was titayid when they come to along in the sea. Came to the base medrash, hyped on learning, and then he's looking. Oive, I lost the get that I was a shliach to bring. So he says he made an announcement. Claps on the beam. He says, "Look, Rabbi Yisai, if anyone found the get over here, says mans and isimana. If you need a simon that I should give you, sleep bigava. I have a simon. Itvi is eina. If you want to have recognition that you should give it back to me, isli bigave. I I've already looked at this get many times, and I recognize it without any simon. I can tell you with clear recognition that this is the one. So they gave him back the get. He said, Lo Yadan, I don't know why they gave it back to me. Did they give it back to me because that the simon that I had, which was just a generic simon, and they hold that it was the halach of simon is biblical because Rashi explains he didn't give him a distinct simon, a simon movik. He just gave a regular generic simon. From the fact that they relied on the simon for isur, obviously they held that simonim is enough when you give it back in aveda as a biblical halacha. Where is that learned out from? So the Gemara in the Yom Tzir says from Bechin Tasal Simlasai, which is that you give a defining characteristic of the simla, but maybe that's why they give it back to me. Or Imishim Tviyas, maybe they give it back to me because of recognition, but that would be V'davka Tzuv Me'Rabbanan. It's specifically for a rabbinic scholar who he knows things with recognition, and also he wouldn't change his words. But a regular person, you wouldn't give it back to him and says, I recognize it, because that wouldn't necessarily be the truth that he'd be saying. But be that as it may, that's the discussion regarding would it be enough with Simonim or not, but definitely Simon Muvik would be enough. What do you mean, as Iker? You told me if. Yeah, so I'm saying, so we believe him that it's his, and he.
How do we know? According to
Right, that's in the Gemara. But Metzias discusses this that we believe we have given them manas for Tamachachim that he has. So actually, Tais discusses if it's only a Tamachachim who has Tviyas Ayin, or if Amaretz also has. But be that maybe we would not believe the Amaretz when he says recognition. It's really about belief. When you have Simonim also, that's also about that. Us knowing that who's this object really belongs to. Now the Mishnah told us that Bimlav, if you don't find it right away, passes can be invalid, as we discussed, because for all the different reasons why we have to suspect that maybe it fell from someone else. Now, talking about Linda Brisa, what's not immediate? Meaning, you told me if it's immediate, you don't have to be concerned because it's definitely the lost get. If it's not immediate, okay, then we have to be concerned, and we're not going to be able to give it back. So what's not immediate? So Reb Nasnami says, Shashah, if he waited the amount of time that a caravan could pass by and that they could set up camp over there, that's already enough time for us to be concerned that maybe it fell from someone else. Ben Tam says the word Vatishra is a lashon of a suda, which is they take out their tools to eat their meal, then that's enough time for us to think that it fell from them. But be that as it may, that's one pshat. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, he says, a second shot is no, it's that a person should watch there and see that no one ever passed by. In other words, as Rashi explains, the first shot was saying a shiur, a measurement. Here, the second shot is saying no, it's technical. Yeah, a person has to see that no one ever passed by from the moment that the shliach had been over there until the time was found. That's going to be the halacha of that, if it's immediate or not. The first one was saying, no, nothing to do with a caravan actually passing by and settling. It's just the amount of time that it would take. Second one, was saying, no, it's literal. It has to be that, did people pass by? Right, no, it sounds like from the halacha of the Mishnah that Umitzai, that he found it himself. So, but when he finds it, we don't know did it fall from someone else. So there's a guy who was there, that would be alter. If not, that would be not la alter. Third shot, some say if no one lingered in the area of the get. Rabbi Yomi says, there's the amount of time of writing a get, which as Rashi explains, obviously that was have to do with the finding of the get. It's just a shiur ba'alma nasnaboy. That's how much time he evaluated would be not immediate, and he said it's the amount of time to write a get. Rabbi Yitzchak, he says, the amount of time it takes to read a get. The amount of time it takes to write and to read. Again, that's obviously not relevant to the actual story, but it's just a time that they held, and therefore they put it into the terminologies of Gitin. Now, however, says the Gemara, Tafil Shah, even if someone did linger, but v'yeshbe simanim, as Rashi explains, muvhakim, you have distinct signs, the mid malab, then these signs will testify and that would validate the get. Which, what does that mean? The Amri Nekev Yeshbe B'tzad explains where he says that there was a hole on the side of that letter, but you can't just testify regarding the identifying features of the document itself. For example, the Amri Aruch V'gut, he said the document was long, it was a short document. That's nothing because there's many types of documents like that. Now, Mitzay Kasher B'kis, let's say you find it tied onto his purse and he recognizes his wallet. Or Ba'arniki, or B'tabaz, or Arniki is some type of a case, a tabaz on his ring, as a Gitin Daf Chav Chesem and Alf, Ben Caleb, they find it between his items in his own house. But even a long period of time, kasha can be kasha because obviously it's from him. Neitma, we learned that Rabbi Yehuda Mashmoli says halacha, the halacha is shaloi shah adam sham. Which one of these 6 measurements that we said? It's the amount that a person didn't linger over there. Yeah, but here's talking about a shliach. In our Mishnah, we're talking about that someone else brought it, so he knows the husband gave it, and then he lost it. The question is, but if it was immediate or not immediate? Well, we don't usually chaysher that when you have a shliach lo'elacha that the husband retracted, because that's a question you could always ask. You could say that maybe get Medina Sayam. How can you give it 6 months later? Maybe he retracted and he nullified. So until we know otherwise, we don't suspect that. But so actually, Taisa says this that you find it between Ben Caleb means bebeisa. I mean, even though Rabbim Mitzuim bebeisa. So that's the chiddush of that halach. Of course, you find it in his house. Of course, no, even people come there. Okay, then we'll say that it's his own, and regarding the other questions that you said that who found it. So Taisa actually explains on the Maskal Matzah over here. It says someone when he finds it himself, we rely on his recognition, even though he's not a tzuvim rabbanon. That's we believe in b'migud that if he wants to say I didn't lose in the first place, because everyone has recognition, as he brought from every time before, and he recognizes his items, even if he doesn't recognize the get, because he recognizes the get, what do you have to recognize his case? So Taisa discuss a lot of these different points, but Itmar, the Gemara brings that Rabbi Yehuda Mishmul, he passes like the one who says halacha shlei shah adam sham from the 6 pshat, and what does it mean immediate is that no one lingered over there. Rabbi Chanan, Rabbi Yitzchak Mishmul, he says halacha, the halacha is no like the one that says shlei abba adam sham, that literally no one ever passed by. So the Gemara says, why are you saying the things? Leima ma halacha kamar, ma halacha kamar. Why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda say halacha is like the Yeshayimim, and let Rabbi say halacha is like Rabbi Shimon? Why are you mentioning it like the opinions themselves? Just say like the Tanoim who said that. I think Gemara says no mishum da afchilahu, because there were certain girsayis that had Reb Shimon like the Yeshayim and Yeshayim like Reb Shimon. So therefore, if we didn't mention but the names of the Chachamim, you wouldn't know exactly from which of the 2 different versions it was that you're passing like. Therefore, they have to say it out loud. One last halacha, the Gemara just clarifies when it said in the Mishnah matzah b'chafisa b'bluskama, we said if you recognize those items, even if you don't recognize the get, like Taisa we just quoted, it says it's going to be kosher. So my chafisa. Some Rabbi Babachan, it's a chemes katana, it's a small flask, which Rashi says is bolzula balaz, which is made out of leather, which you use for wine. And my dluskam, it's talika desavi, it's the box of the elderly people. It's Rashi is tashka balaz, that these elderly people that have their boxes and they have all the different items in over there. So if you find the get inside over there, it's going to be kosher. Thank you for any time hosting us.